And so, with an urgency that would soon turn to deep regret, Inigo and Fezzik approached the Zoo of Death. Quite a bizarre place, Inigo said, moving past several large cages in which were cheetahs and hummingbirds and other swift things. At the end of the hall there was another door with a sign above it saying, "To Level 2." They opened the door and saw a flight of stairs leading very steeply down. "Careful," Inigo said. "Stay close to me and watch your balance." They started toward the second level. "If I tell you something, will you promise not to laugh at me or mock me or be mean to me?" Fezzik asked. "My word," Inigo nodded. "I'm just scared to pieces," Fezzik said. "Be sure it ceases," Inigo said right back. "Oh, that's a wonderful rhyme." "Some other time," Inigo said, making another, feeling quite bright about the whole thing. The staircase was straight and very long, but eventually they reached the end of it. Another corridor lined with cages, big ones, though, and inside great baying hippos and a 20-foot alligator thrashing angrily in shallow water. "We must hurry," Inigo said, picking up the pace, much as we might like to dawdle. And he half ran toward a sign that said, "To Level 3." Inigo opened the door and looked down, and Fezzik peered over his shoulder. Inigo said. He started down the curving stairs, Fezzik following, and as the door closed behind them, two things happened. One, the door quite clearly locked. Two, out went the candles on the high walls. "Don't be frightened," Inigo screamed. I'm not, Fezzik screamed right back. And then above his heartbeat he managed, "What are we going to do?" "Look, we can't go back, and we certainly don't want to stay here, so we just must keep on going as we were before these little things happened." Any serious snake enthusiast would admit, whatever his schooling, that the Arabian Garstini, though shorter than the python and lighter than the anaconda, was quicker and more ravenous than either. And Prince Humperdinck's was not only remarkable for its speed and agility, it was also kept in a permanent state, just verging on the outskirts of starvation. So the first coil came like lightning as it dropped from above them, and pinioned their hands so the fist and sword were useless, and the second coil imprisoned their arms. "And do something," Inigo cried. "I can't. I'm caught. You do something." "Fight it, Fezzik. It's too strong for me." "Nothing's too strong for you." The third coil was done now, around the upper shoulders, and the fourth coil, the final coil, involved the throat. Inigo whispered in terror because he could hear the beast breathing now, could actually feel its breath. "Fight it. I'm... Fezzik trembled with fear and whispered, "Forgive me, Inigo." "Oh, Fezzik. What?" "I had such rhymes for you." "What rhymes?" The fourth coil was finished. "Inigo, what rhymes?" Silence. Snake breath. "Inigo, I want to know the rhymes before I die." "Inigo, tell me the rhymes," Fezzik said. And by now he was very frustrated, and more than that, he was spectacularly angry. And one arm came clear of one coil, and that made it a bit less of a chore to fight free of the second coil. And that meant he could take that arm and bring it to the aid of the other arm, and now he was yelling it out. "You're not going anywhere until I know those rhymes!" And his hands grabbed toward the snake breath. And he didn't know if snakes had necks or not, but whatever it was that you called that part that was underneath its mouth, that was the part he had between his great hands, and he gave it a smash against the wall, and the snake hissed and spit, but the fourth coil was looser. So Fezzik smashed it again, and when the snake was dead, Inigo said, "Actually, I had no specific rhymes in mind. I just had to do something to get you into action." "You lied to me, is what you're saying. My only friend in all my life turns out to be a liar." He started tromping down the stairs. Inigo stumbled after him. Fezzik reached the door at the bottom and threw it open and slammed it, with Inigo just managing to slip inside before the door crashed shut. It locked immediately. At the end of this corridor, the "To the Level 4" sign was clearly visible, and Fezzik hurried toward it. "I apologize," Inigo said. "One lie in all these years, that's not such a terrible average when you consider it saved our lives." "There's such a thing as principle," was all Fezzik would answer, and he opened the door that led to the fourth level. "Stop," Inigo said. "At least examine where we're going." It was a straight staircase, but completely dark. The opening at the far end was invisible. "It can't be as bad as where we've been," Fezzik snapped, and down he went. In a way, he was right. For Inigo, bats were never the ultimate nightmare. Oh, he was afraid of them, like everybody else, and he would run and scream if they came near. In his mind, though, hell was not bat-infested. But Fezzik was a Turkish boy, and people claim the fruit bat from Indonesia is the biggest in the world. Try telling that to a Turk sometime. Try telling that to anyone who has heard his mother scream, "Here come the king bats!" followed by the poisonous fluttering of wings. "Here come the king bats!" Fezzik screamed, and he was, quite literally, as he stood halfway down the dark steps, paralyzed with fear. And behind him now, doing his best to fight the darkness, came Inigo. And he had never heard that tone before, not from Fezzik. And Inigo didn't want bats in his hair either, but it wasn't worth that kind of fright. So he started to say, "What's so terrible about King Bats?" But what was all he had time for before Fezzik cried, "Rabies! Rabies!" And that was all Inigo needed to know, and he yelled, "Down, Fezzik!" As the fluttering grew louder, and with all the strength he slammed the giant on the shoulder, hollering, "Down!" And Fezzik went to his knees obediently, and Inigo knelt above him, the great six-fingered sword flying into his hands, while below him Fezzik trembled like a kitten in cold water. "Be still," Inigo commanded. And that was the last sound he made, because he needed his ears now, and he tilted his head toward the flutter, the great sword firm in his right hand, the deadly point circling slowly in the air. "Come on," Inigo was about to say, but there was no need, because with a rush of wings he had expected, and a high, long shriek he had not, the first king bat swooped down at him. The six-fingered sword drove through like butter. The death sound of the king bat was close to human, only a bit higher pitched and shorter, and Inigo was only briefly interested because now there was a double flutter. They were coming at him from two sides. Inigo knew he was not about to lose this fight, and from his throat came the words, "I am Inigo Montoya, and still the wizard. Come for me." And when he heard three of them fluttering, he wished he had just been a little bit more modest, but it was too late for that. So he needed surprise, and he took it. Shifting position against the beast, standing straight, taking their dives long before they expected, and now there were 7 king bats, and his sword completely out of balance. And that would have been the bad thing, except for one important aspect. The fluttering was done. "Some giant you are," Inigo said then, and he stepped over Fezzik and hurried down the rest of the darkened stairs. Fezzik got up and lumbered after him, saying, "Inigo, listen, I made a terrible mistake before. You didn't lie to me. You tricked me. So I'm not mad at you anymore. Is that all right with you? It's all right with me." They turned the knob on the door at the bottom of the black stairs and stepped onto the 4th level. They started toward the sign that said, "To level 5, passing strange cages." "This is the worst yet," Inigo said. Then he jumped back, because behind a pale glass case, a blood eagle was actually eating what looked like an arm. "Hurry," Inigo said. They opened the door and looked down toward the 5th level. The door they opened had no lock, so it could not trap them. The stairs were all brightly lit, and the stairs were absolutely straight, and it wasn't a long flight at all. And there was nothing inside. It was bright and clean and totally, without the least doubt, empty. "Looks all right," Fezzik said. "No, it's supposed to. That's to fool us. Whatever we've gotten by before, this must be worse." "But there's nothing to see, Inigo." Inigo nodded. "That's why I'm so frightened." He took another step down toward the final, ornate green-handled door. "I'm Inigo Montoya the wizard. Come for me!" He turned around and around, sword ready, studying the brightly lit staircase. "Now you're scaring me," Fezzik said, and he let the door close behind him and started down the stairs. Inigo started after him. The green-speckled recluse doesn't destroy as quickly as the stonefish. But gram for gram, nothing in the universe comes close to the green-speckled recluse. Among other spiders, compared with the green-speckled recluse, the Black Widow was a rag doll. Prince Humperdinck's recluse lived behind the ornate green handle on the bottom door. She rarely moved unless the handle moved. Then she struck like lightning. On the 6th stair, Fezzik put his arm around Inigo's shoulders. "We'll go down together, step by step." "There's nothing here, Inigo." "There has to be. Why?" "Because the prince is a fiend, and Rugen is his twin in misery, and this is their masterpiece." They moved to the 4th step. "That's wonderful thinking, Inigo," Fezzik said, loud and calmly, but inside he was starting to go to pieces. "If you were Fezzik and you hadn't much brain power, and you found yourself 4 stories underground in a zoo of death looking for a man in black that you really didn't think was down there, what did you do?" "If you were Fezzik, you panicked." So Fezzik did what he always did in a panic situation. He bolted. He just yelled and jumped for the door and slammed it open with his body, never even bothering with the niceties of turning the pretty green handle. And as the door gave behind his strength, he kept right on running until he came to the giant cage, and there, inside and still, lay the man in black. Fezzik was inside the place, kneeling over the body. "Don't say it," Inigo said, entering. Fezzik tried not to, but it was on his face. Dead. Inigo sat down miserably on the floor and put his arms around his knees and rocked back and forth like a baby, back and forth, and back. I am Inigo Montoya, the son of Domingo Montoya, and I do not accept it. He sprang to his feet, started up the underground stairs, stopping only long enough to snap commands. Come along, bring the body. He searched through his pockets for a moment, but they were empty. Have you got any money, Fezzik? Some. They pay well on the Brute Squad. Well, I just hope it's enough to buy a miracle, that's all. When the knocking started on his hut door, Miracle Max almost didn't answer. Go away, he almost said, because lately it was only kids come to mock him. Except this was a little past the time for kids being up. It was almost midnight, and besides, the knocking was both loud and at the same time rat-a-tatty, as if the brain was saying to the fist, hurry it up, I want to see a little action. So Max opened the door a peek's worth. I don't know you. Aren't you the Miracle Max that worked all these years for the king? This skinny guy said. I got fired, didn't you hear? That's a painful subject, and you shouldn't have brought it up. Get away, I called the Brute Squad. And he closed the hut door. I'm on the Brute Squad, this other voice said from outside the door, a big, deep voice you wanted to stay friendly with. We need a miracle. It's very important, the skinny guy said from outside. I'm retired, Max said. Anyway, you wouldn't want someone the king got rid of, would you? I might kill whoever you wanted me to miracle. He's already dead, the skinny guy said. He is, huh? Max said, a little interest in his voice now. He opened the door a peek's worth again. I'm good at dead. Bring him in. I'm making no promises. This huge guy and the skinny guy brought in this big guy and put him on the hut floor. Max poked the corpse. Not so stiff as some, he said. How much money you got? Give him your money, Fezzik. Here's all I've got, this great voice boomed. You count it, Inigo. There was a pause. 65 is what we've got, the one called Inigo said. Max said, I never worked for anything that little in my life. What's so special I should bring back out of all the hundreds of people pestering me every day for my miracles this particular fella? And believe me, it better be worthwhile. Inigo was about to say, so he can tell me how to kill Count Rugen. But that didn't quite sound like the kind of thing that would strike a cranky miracle man as aiding the general betterment of mankind. So he said, he's got a wife. He's got 15 kids. They haven't a shred of food. If he stays dead, they'll starve. So, oh, Sonny, you are a liar, Max said. And he went to the corner and got out a huge bellows. I'll ask him, Max grunted, lifting the bellows towards Wesley. He's a corpse. He can't talk, Inigo said. We got our ways, was all Max would answer, and he stuck the huge bellows way down into Wesley's throat and started to pump. You see, Max explained as he pumped, there's different kinds of dead. There's sort of dead, mostly dead, and all dead. This fella here, he's only sort of dead, which means there's still a memory inside. There's still bits of brain. He stopped pumping the bellows after a few moments and then started shouting into Wesley's ear. What's so important? What's here worth coming back for? What you got waiting for you? True love. True love, he said, Inigo cried. You heard him. True love is what he wants to come back for. That's certainly worthwhile. Sonny, don't you tell me what's worthwhile. True love is the best thing in the world, except for cough drops. Everybody knows that. Give me the 65. I'm on the case. He knelt beside Wesley. He said. How long does he have to maintain full efficiency? Well, that's hard to predict, Inigo said, since the first thing we have to do is storm the castle. And you never can be really sure how those things work out. An hour pill should be about right. It'll work without a hitch, Inigo said. Max nodded very firmly, but he did not smile. There was something in the back of his mind bothering him. He never forgot things, not important things, and he didn't forget this either. He just didn't remember it in time. At 5 o'clock, Max was in the basement sipping coffee, remembering about the pill. I think I messed up the amounts, he thought. Didn't they want an hour? When I doubled the recipe, I didn't do enough. He didn't think it would work over 40 minutes. The man in black was nearly stiff when Fezzik reached the castle wall. How long do you think we'll have to wait before we know if the miracle's on or not? Your guess is as good as mine, Inigo said. Get his mouth as wide open as you can and tilt his head back a little, and we'll just drop it in and see. Fezzik worked at the dead man's mouth a while, got it the way Inigo said, tilted the neck perfect the first time, and Inigo knelt directly above the cavity, dropped the pill down, and as it hit the throat, he heard, Couldn't beat me alone, you dastards! Well, I'll beat you each apart. I beat you both together. You're alive, Fezzik cried. The man in black sat immobile, like a ventriloquist dummy, just his mouth moving. That is perhaps the most childishly obvious remark I have ever come across. But what can you expect from a strangler? Why won't my arms move? You've been dead, Inigo explained. And we're not strangling you, Fezzik explained. We were just getting the pill down. The resurrection pill, Inigo explained. I bought it from Miracle Max, and it works for 60 minutes. What happens after 60 minutes? Do I die again? It wasn't 60 minutes. He just thought it was. Actually, it was 40. Only they had used up one already in conversation, so it was down to 39. We don't know. Probably you just collapse and need tending for a year or however long it takes you to get your strength back. The last thing I remember was dying, so why am I on this wall? Are we enemies? Have you got names? I'm the Dread Pirate Roberts, but you can call me Wesley. Fezzik. Inigo Montoya of Spain. Let me tell you what's been going on. He stopped and shook his head. No, he said. There's too much. It would take too long. The wedding is at 6, which leaves us probably something over a half an hour to get in, steal a girl, and get out. But not before I kill Count Rugen. It's impossible, Wesley cried. I am Inigo Montoya, and I do not accept defeat. You will think of something. I have complete confidence in you. I mean, if we even had a wheelbarrow, that would be something, Wesley said. Where did we put that wheelbarrow the albino had, Inigo asked. Over the albino, I think, Fezzik replied. Maybe we can get a wheelbarrow, Inigo said. Well, why didn't you mention that in the first place? Wesley said, sitting up, staring at the massed troops in the distance. When Buttercup heard the wedding was to be moved up, she wasn't the least upset. Wesley was always prepared for contingencies, and if he could rescue her at 6, he could just as happily rescue her at 5:30. Actually, Prince Humperdinck got things going even faster than he had hoped. It was 5:23 when he and his bride-to-be were kneeling before the aged Archdean of Florin. It was 5:24 when the Archdean started to speak, and 5:25 when the screaming started outside the main gate. Buttercup only smiled softly. Here comes my Wesley now, was all she thought. It was not, in point of fact, her Wesley that was causing the commotion out front. Wesley was doing all he could to simply walk straight down the incline toward the main gate without help. Ahead of him, Inigo struggled with the heavy wheelbarrow. The reason for its weight was that Fezzik stood in it, arms wide, eyes blazing, voice booming, in terrible rage. I am the Dread Pirate Roberts, and there will be no survivors. He was standing there, gliding down through the darkness, quite an imposing figure, seeming all in all probably close to 10 feet tall, with voice to match. But even that was not the cause of the screaming. When the giant got halfway down the incline, he suddenly, happily, burst into flames and continued his trip, saying, No survivors! No survivors! In a manner that could only indicate deadly sincerity. It was seeing him happily burning and advancing that started the brute squad to screaming. And once that happened, why, everybody panicked and ran. Once the panic was underway, Yellen realized he had next to no chance of bringing things immediately under control. Fortunately, he had the sense to grab the one and only key to the castle and hide it on his person. Fortunately, too, Wesley had the sense to look for such behavior. Give me the key, Wesley said to Yellen, once Inigo had his sword securely pressing Yellen's Adam's apple. I have no key, Yellen replied. I swear on the grave of my parents. May my mother's soul forever sizzle in torment if I am lying. Tear his arms off, Wesley said to Fezzik, who was sizzling a bit himself now because there was a limit to just how long the Holocaust cloak he had acquired at Miracle Max's was really good for, and he wanted to strip a bit, but before he did that, he reached for Yellen's arms. This gate key, you mean, Yellen said, and he dropped it, and after Inigo had taken his sword, they let him run away. Open the gate, Wesley said to Fezzik. Once inside, Inigo cried and raised his sword. Count Rugen and 4 palace guards were rounding a corner and running toward them. The time was then 5:34. The wedding itself did not end until 5:31, and Humperdinck had to use all of his persuasive abilities to get even that much accomplished. Holiness, my love is simply overpowering my ability to wait. Please skip on down to the end of the service. Man and wife, you're man and wife, the Archdean said. Thank you, Holiness, the prince said, whirling towards Rugen. Stop that commotion, he commanded, and before his words were finished, the Count was running for the chapel door. It took a full 3 minutes for the Count and the guards to reach the gate, and when they did, the Count could not believe it. He had seen Wesley killed, and now there was Wesley, and with a giant and a strangely scarred, swarthy fellow. Something about the twin scars banked deep into his memory. But now was not the time for reminiscing. Kill them, he said to the fencers, but leave the middle-sized one until I tell you, and the 4 guards drew their swords. But too late and too slow, because as Fezzik moved in front of Wesley, Inigo attacked, the great blade blinding, and the fourth guard was dead before the first one had sufficient time to hit the floor. Inigo executed a quick and well-formed bow. "Hello," he said. "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And in reply, the Count did a genuinely remarkable and unexpected thing. He turned and ran. It was now 5:37. The truth of Buttercup's situation did not take genuine effect until she was halfway to Humperdinck's room. There was no Wesley. No sweet Wesley. He had not seen fit to come for her. She gave a terrible sigh, not so much of sadness as of farewell. Once she got to Humperdinck's room, it would all be done. He had a splendid collection of swords and cutlery. She had never seriously contemplated suicide before. To her quiet surprise, she found it was going to be the easiest thing in the world. The time was then 5:46. Inigo at 5:37 was so startled at the Count's cowardice that for a moment he simply stood there. Then he gave chase, but the Count made it through a doorway, slammed it and locked it, and Inigo was helpless to budge the thing. "Fezzik!" he called out desperately. "Fezzik, break it down!" Fezzik lumbered to the door, threw his bulk against it hard. The door gave a little, but not enough. Fezzik backed away from it now. With a roar, he charged across the corridor, and when he was close, he left the castle floor with both feet, and the door splintered. Thank you, Inigo said, already halfway through the broken door. "What do I do now, though?" Fezzik called. "Back to Wesley," Inigo answered, in full flight now, beginning chasing through a series of rooms. "Stupid," Fezzik punished himself with, and he turned and rejoined Wesley. Only Wesley was no longer there. Fezzik could feel the panic starting inside him. There was half a dozen possible corridors. Which, Fezzik said, trying to figure it out, trying for once in his life to do something right. "You'll pick the wrong one, knowing you," he said out loud. And then he took a corridor and started hurrying along it as fast as he could. He did pick the wrong one. Wesley was alone now. By 5:48, Buttercup felt quite sure she would be dead. It was still a minute before that as she stood staring at the prince's knives. They were made in varying sizes, and the prince's looked to be one of the largest. She pulled it from the wall, put it to her heart. "There are always too few perfect breasts in this world. Leave yours alone," she heard. And there was Wesley on the bed. It was 5:48, and she knew she would never die. Wesley, for his part, assumed he had until 6:15 for his hour to be up. Only he didn't have an hour, only 40 minutes. But as has been said, he had no way of knowing that. And Inigo had no way of knowing that Count Rugen had a Florinese dagger. It took Inigo until 5:41 before he actually cornered the Count, in a billiard room. "Hello," he was about to say. "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." What he actually got out was somewhat less. "Hello, my name is And then the dagger rearranged his insides. The force of the throw sent him staggering backward into the wall. The rush of blood weakened him so quickly he could not keep his feet. Domingo, he whispered, and then he was, at 42 minutes after 5, lost on his knees. Buttercup was baffled by Wesley's behavior. She rushed to him, expecting to be met halfway in a wild embrace. Instead, he only smiled at her and remained where he was, lying on the prince's pillows, a sword beside his body. Buttercup continued the journey alone and fell onto her very one and darling Wesley. "Gently," he said. "At a time like this, that's all you can think to say? Gently?" "Gently," Wesley repeated, not so gently this time. She got off him. "Are you angry at me for getting married?" she wondered. "You are not married," he said softly. Strange his voice was. Not in my church or any other. But this old man did pronounce widows happen. Every day. "Don't they, Your Highness?" And now his voice was stronger as he addressed the prince as he entered. Prince Humperdinck dove for his weapons, and a sword flashed in his thick hands. "To the death," he said, advancing. Wesley gave a soft shake of his head. "No," he corrected. "To the pain." "I don't think I quite understand that." Wesley lay without moving, but he was smiling more deeply now. "I'll be only too delighted to explain." It was 5:50 now. Slowly, carefully, he began to talk. Inigo was talking too. It was still 5:42 when he whispered, "I'm sorry, Father." Count Rugen heard the words, but nothing really connected until he saw the sword still held in Inigo's hand. "You're that little Spanish brat I taught a lesson to," he said, coming closer now, examining the scars. "It's simply incredible. Have you been chasing me all these years, only to fail now? I think that's the worst thing I've ever heard of. How marvelous." Inigo could say nothing. The blood fauceted from his stomach. Count Rugen drew his sword. I don't want your sorry. My name is Domingo Montoya, and I died for that sword, and you can keep your sorry. If you were going to fail, why didn't you die years ago and let me rest in peace? Inigo pulled the knife from his body and stuffed his left fist into the bleeding. Slowly, inch by inch, Inigo forced his body up the wall, using his legs just for pushing, letting the wall do all the supporting that was necessary. Count Rugen struck again, but for any number of reasons, most probably because he hadn't expected the other man's movement. He missed the heart and had to be content with driving his blade through the Spaniard's left arm. Inigo didn't mind. He didn't even feel it. His right arm was where his interest lay, and he squeezed the handle. And there was strength in his hand, enough to flick out the enemy, and Count Rugen hadn't expected that either. So he gave a little involuntary cry and took a step back to reassess the situation. Power was flowing from Inigo's heart to his right shoulder and down from his shoulder to his fingers, and then into the great six-fingered sword, and he pushed off from the wall, then with a whispered, "Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." And they crossed swords. The Count went for the quick kill. The inverse Benetti. No chance. "Hello? My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Again they crossed. The Count moved into a Marazzo defense because the blood was still streaming. "Hello? My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." Inigo dug with his fist, and he didn't want to think what he was touching and pushing and holding into place, but for the first time he felt able to try a move. So the six-fingered sword flashed forward, and there was a cut down one side of Count Rugen's cheek. Another flash, another cut, parallel, bleeding. "My name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." "Stop saying that!" The Count was beginning to experience a decline of nerve. Inigo drove for the Count's left shoulder as the Count had wounded his. Then he went through the Count's left arm, at the same spot the Count had penetrated him. "Hello," stronger now. "Hello, hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die." The six-fingered sword flashed again. The Count screamed. "That was just to the left of your heart," Inigo struck again. Another scream. "That was below your heart. Can you guess what I'm doing?" "Cutting my heart out. You took mine when I was 10. I want yours now. We are lovers of justice, you and I. What could be more just than that?" The Count screamed one final time, and then fell dead of fear. Inigo looked down at him. The Count's frozen face was petrified and ashen, and the blood still poured down the parallel cuts. It was glorious, if you like that kind of thing. Inigo loved it. "I'm going to tell you something once, and then whether you die or not is strictly up to you," Wesley said, lying pleasantly on the bed. Across the room the Prince held his sword high. "What I'm going to tell you is this. Drop your sword. And if you do, then I will leave this baggage here," he glanced at Buttercup, "and you will be tied up, but not fatally, and will soon be free to go about your business. And if you choose to fight, well then, we will not both leave alive." "I expect to breathe a while," the Prince said. "I think you're bluffing. You have been prisoner for months, and I myself killed you less than a day ago, so I doubt that you have much might left in your arm." "Possibly true," Wesley agreed. "And when the moment comes, remember that. I might indeed be bluffing. I could, in fact, be lying right here because I lack the strength to stand. You're only alive now because you said to the pain. I want that phrase explained." "My pleasure." It was 5:52 now, 3 minutes left. He thought he had 18. He took a long pause, then started speaking. "To the pain means this. If we duel and you win, death for me. If we duel and I win, life for you. But life on my terms." "Meaning?" "I am a pirate. We have our special tricks with swords. The first thing you lose will be your feet," Wesley said. "The left, then the right, below the ankle. You will have stumps available to use within 6 months. Then your hands at the wrist. They heal somewhat quicker. 5 months is a fair average. Next your nose. No smell of dawn for you. Followed by your tongue, deeply cut away. Not even a stump left. Then your left eye. And then my right eye, then my ears. And shall we get on with it, the Prince said. It was 5:54. "Wrong!" Wesley's voice rang across the room. "Your ears you keep, so that every shriek of every child at seeing your hideousness will be yours to cherish. That is what to the pain means. It means that I leave you to live in anguish, in humiliation. in freakish misery until you can stand it no more. So there you have it, pig. And I say this now, live or die, it's up to you. Drop your sword. The sword crashed to the floor. It was 5:55. Wesley's eyes rolled up into his head, and his body crumpled and half-pitched from the bed, and the prince saw that and went to the floor, grabbing for his sword, standing, starting to bring it high, when Wesley cried out, "Now you will suffer! To the pain!" His eyes were open again, open and blazing. "I'm sorry, I meant nothing. I didn't. Look!" And the prince dropped his sword a second time. "Tie him," Wesley said to Buttercup. "Be quick about it. Use the curtain sashes. They look enough to hold him." "You do it so much better," Buttercup replied. "Woman," Wesley roared, "you are the property of the dread pirate Roberts, and you do what you're told." Buttercup gathered the sashes and did what she could with tying up her husband. Humperdinck lay flat while she did it. "I wasn't afraid of you," he said to Wesley. "I dropped my sword because it will be so much more pleasure for me to hunt you down." "You think so, do you? I doubt you'll find us. I'll conquer Gilder, then I'll come for you. The corner you least expect, when you round it, you will find me waiting. I am the king of the sea. I await you with pleasure." There was a movement at the doorway, and Inigo was there. Buttercup cried out at the blood. Inigo ignored her, looked around. "Where's Fezzik?" "Isn't he with you?" Wesley said. Inigo leaned for a moment against the nearest wall, gathering strength. Then he said, "Help him up," to Buttercup. "Wesley," Buttercup replied, "why does he need me to help him?" "Because he has no strength. Now do what you're told," Inigo said. And then suddenly on the floor the prince began struggling mightily with the sashes he was tied, and tied well, but power and anger were both on his side. "You were bluffing. I was right the first time," Humperdinck said. And Inigo said, "That was not a clever thing of me to let slip. I'm sorry." And Wesley said, "Did you at least win your battle?" And Inigo said, "I did." And Wesley said, "Let's try to find some place to defend ourselves. At least perhaps we can go together." And Buttercup said, "I'll help you, poor darling." And Fezzik said, "Oh, Inigo, I need you. Please, Inigo. I'm lost and miserable and frightened, and I just need to see a friendly face." They moved slowly to the window. Wandering lost and forlorn through the prince's garden was Fezzik, leading the 4 giant whites. "Here," Inigo whispered. 3 friendly faces, Fezzik said, kind of bouncing up and down on his heels, which he always did when things were looking up. "Oh, Inigo, I just ruined everything, and I got so lost, and when I stumbled into the stables and found these pretty horses, I thought 4 was how many of them there were, and 4 was how many of us there were, too, if we found a lady. Hello, lady. And I thought, why not take them along with me in case we all ever run into each other? And I guess we just did." "If we only had a ladder," Buttercup began. "Oh, you don't need a ladder to get down here," Fezzik said. "It's only 20 feet. I'll catch you. Only do it one at a time, please. There's not enough light, so if you all come at once, I might miss." So while Humperdinck struggled, they jumped, one at a time, and Fezzik caught them gently and put them on the whites, and he still had the key so they could get out of the front gate. And except for the fact that Yellen had regrouped the brute squad, they would have gotten out without any trouble at all. As it was, when Fezzik unlocked the gate, they saw nothing but armed brutes in formation, Yellen at their lead, and no one smiling. Wesley shook his head. "I'm dry of notions." "Child's play," of all people, Buttercup said, and she led the group toward Yellen. "The Count is dead. The prince is in grave danger. Hurry now, and you may yet save him. All of you, go." Not a brute moved. "They obey me," Yellen said, "and I'm in charge of enforcement, and I," Buttercup said. "I," she repeated, standing in the saddle, a creature of infinite beauty and eyes that were starting to go frightening. "I," she said for the 3rd and last time, "am the Queen!" There was no doubting her sincerity, or power, or capability of vengeance. She stared imperiously across the brute squad. "Save Humperdinck," one brute said, and with that they all dashed into the castle. "Save Humperdinck," Yellen said. The last one left, but clearly his heart wasn't in it. "All I can say is I'm impressed," Wesley told her as they began to ride for freedom. Buttercup shrugged. "I've been going to royalty school for 3 years now. Something had to rub off. You all right? I was worried about you back there on the bed. Your eyes rolled up into your head and everything. I suppose I was dying again, so I asked the Lord of Permanent Affection for the strength to live the day. Clearly the answer came in the affirmative." "I didn't know there was such a fellow," Buttercup said. "Neither did I, in truth, but if he didn't exist, I didn't much want to either." The 4 great horses seemed almost to fly toward Florin Channel. "It appears to me as if we're doomed, then," Buttercup said. Wesley looked at her. "Doomed, madam?" "To be together, until one of us dies." "I've done that already, and I haven't the slightest intention of ever doing it again," Wesley said. Buttercup looked at him. "Don't we sort of have to sometime?" "Not if we promise to outlive each other. And I make that promise now. Buttercup looked at him. Oh, my Wesley, so do I. From behind them, suddenly, closer than they imagined, they could hear the roar of Humperdinck. Stop them! Cut them off! They were admittedly startled, but there was no reason for worry. They were on the fastest horses in the kingdom, and the lead was already theirs. However, this was before Inigo's wound reopened, Wesley relapsed again, and Fezzik took the wrong turn, and Buttercup's horse threw a shoe, and the night behind them was filled with the crescendoing sound of pursuit. That's Morgenstern's ending. Lady of the Tiger type effect. This was before the Lady of the Tiger, remember. Now, he was a satirist, so he left it that way. And my father was, I guess, I realized too late, a romantic, so he ended it another way. Well, I'm an abridger, so I'm entitled to a few ideas of my own. Did they make it? Was the pirate ship there? You can answer it for yourself. But for me, I say yes, it was. And I say yes, they got away, and got their strength back and had lots of adventures, and more than their share of laughs. But that doesn't mean I think that they had a happy ending either. Because in my opinion, anyway, they squabbled a lot, and Buttercup lost her looks eventually, and one day Fezzik lost a fight, and some hot-shot kid whipped Inigo with a sword. And Wesley was never able to really sleep sound because of Humperdinck maybe being on the trail. I'm not trying to make this a downer, you understand. I mean, I really do think that love is the best thing in the world except for cough drops. But I also have to say that life isn't fair. It's just fairer than death, that's all. Copyright 1987, Dove Books on Tape, Incorporated.